Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube, and welcome to another edition of my 10,000 subscriber Q&A series. We're going to get right into the questions because it's very late. I'm very tired, and as a result, I do want to finish this particular Q&A series up at least sometime this year. I hope that it doesn't drag into the year 2022. I'm going to do my best to make sure that that doesn't happen. So first question, Sean, can you explain historical documents? I'd like to know some examples as well as what price range they go for. Okay, what matters most in historical artifacts or historical document collecting is pretty much two things: the authenticity of the document and or signature in question, and also the subject matter. Both of those characteristics are extremely important if you're going to play in this market. Now, I can't give you a price range because certain historical documents, obviously, depending on who wrote them and also the subject matter, sell for less than others. What I can tell you to do is, if you register for a free account at heritage.com, www.ha.com, you can pretty much view a lot of their previous auctions. What you want to do is, you want to look for their historical manuscript auctions. Those are pretty much the auctions that have a lot of these historical artifacts that you can look at. You can see what they went for. You can analyze how they were graded by the auction company, meaning there is no third-party grading company in this market. It's all done pretty much by the auction company. That's why it's important, if you do get into this market, make sure you're doing business with a reputable auctioneer. Another auction company I could drop a name for is Swan Auction Galleries. Swan is spelled S-W-A-N-N, and I believe they're out of New York. They also run a lot of manuscript, historical document, rare book auctions are very popular on that particular site. And you can pretty much get a sense of what items are going for. Now, what I will tell you is, again, when it comes to true historical documents, authenticity and also subject matter is utmost important. Let me explain what I mean. If you happen to have like a letter that George Washington wrote to somebody where he was talking about the Revolutionary War and he goes into specific detail, and maybe he even says he has doubts that they could even win the Revolutionary War, and it's verified with his signature, and somebody got a hold of it, and as a result, it pretty much lay dormant for many, many years, and no other article or document like this exists. So it comes to auction. That type of piece, due to the subject matter and the fact that here we have one of the founding fathers of the United States of America talking about the Revolutionary War and how he doesn't think we're going to be able to win the Revolutionary War, and he has a lot of self-doubt. Because of the subject matter of that document, it would probably sell for a small premium, if not a small fortune at auction, because there would probably be no other documents out there done by George Washington along those lines. Now, let me give you another example. Let's say that during the Revolutionary War, George Washington, every month or every quarter, he had to sign off on a document that states how many rifles he was giving his troops. So every 3 months, there would be a document that would be issued that would have George Washington's signature on it, and it would be showing how many rifles he gave to each of his troops. Well, obviously, if every 3 months he signed off on a document like that, it would have less value and less overall significance than the letter that he wrote that was meant to be private, that he gave to someone talking about he has doubts that he's going to win the Revolutionary War. So if both those particular documents came to auction at the same time, most people would want to invest or want to own the one where he's talking about the Revolutionary War. Because, just follow the logic, guys, obviously, if there's a document out there with his signature on that he signed off every 3 months that he gave X number of troops, X number of weapons, or X number of supply of ammunition, that would be more common than the other document in question. So that's how you have to analyze that market. And I have yet to do videos on that. We are going to do videos on that eventually when I get around to them, but I will just tell you, subject matter and authenticity are everything in that market. So if you're getting involved in the market for historical documents, please be careful with who you do business in that market. You are better off going from a highly authenticated, highly, highly regarded prestige auctioneer rather than just buying it from a dealer or someone on the street. Be very careful how you go about buying and researching those particular types of artifacts. Remember, guys, if you're getting involved in historical documents, if you're getting involved in historical manuscripts, that is on the sophisticated and mature side of the antiques equation. There's going to be a major learning curve where if you make a mistake in that market, it is going to be catastrophic to you financially. So just keep that in mind. Next question. Sean, where do you lie on the morality of the antiques market? Do you have any personal gripes with things like WATA, heritage, or is it just part of doing business? I have a problem when companies do not give all the information or all the facts that they have on certain collectibles or certain antiques. And that's my main issue with WATA. That's one of the problems that I had. Meaning, right out of the gate, they refused to release population reports. The other problem that I had was the fact that they were involved in the secondary market. A grading company should not have any presence in the secondary marketplace for the items that they grade. And I don't know how many Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters try to argue this point. If you go all the way back to the 1980s, if that would have occurred with rare coins, dealers and collectors back then would have rose up in protest. The market was being manipulated back then. Make no mistake, there was a massive speculative boom in rare investment grade coins in the 1980s, even in the early 1990s with Merrill Lynch, the Athena Fund, if you want to look that up and research it. But what I will tell you is the grading companies were not getting involved in the secondary market. Today, a lot of the younger collectors, a lot of the Kimmys, Timmys, and Poindexters, the grading company gets involved in the secondary market and they're cheering them on. There's no ethics or transparency. There's no population reports. The Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters go on collecting forums and actually root for the grading company. It makes no sense to me. And that's why in 2021, you have companies like Wall Street financiers, Wall Street billionaires, groups like the Blackstone Group. They're coming into the antiques and collectibles trade and they're buying up either auction companies or grading companies. And you want to know the primary reason why? Because the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters that are operating in these markets, they don't care about ethics and transparency. Well, guess what? To a Wall Street firm that's highly regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, that's candy to their ears. They're happy that there's a market that they can manipulate where the primary consumers in that market do not care about a lack of ethics, a lack of transparency, and also don't even care if the companies themselves get involved in the secondary market. And pretty much a lot of you guys out there, you did that to yourself. So now you have that to deal with because no one's coming to save you. In the year 2021, going into 2022, I could tell you whether we have a Republican president over the next, in 2024 or a Democratic president, they don't really care about what's happening in the antiques and collectibles trade. So pretty much we're back to the wild, wild west with pretty much no regulation. And as a result, we're going to have the inmates running the asylum. So that's my whole problem in a nutshell. A lot of these companies no longer have ethics and transparency. They pretty much are doing their own thing, while the people that pretty much are their primary consumers just turn the other cheek and they go, hey, as long as I can invest in this and make money, I don't care either way. I'm here to tell you, if NGC or PCGS, both top-tier coin grading companies, tomorrow decided to remove the population reports from their site, collectors, dealers, speculators, investors would rise up in protest, and it would be holy hell. I'm here to tell you guys, myself included. If you do that in pop culture markets, though, it's pretty much applauded. Do you see where the disconnect is? That's why when I do videos on wealthy demographics of collectors, meaning collectors that are literally really wealthy and what they invest in, they primarily go after items on the antique side of the equation. They are not putting a lot of their money in Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering, video games, comic books, and the like, because in their eyes, there's very little regulation. And as a result, they see an opportunity for market makers and market manipulators to more easily come in the pop culture collectibles and kind of manipulate the market for their own potential for their own profit. And that's what scares a lot of the wealthy clients that I have who are consultants of mine. When they view these markets, they want to be on the antique side of the equation. A lot of them are now getting out of the pop culture side. Not all of them. Make no mistake, not all of them. But there's a lot of wealthy people that come to me and say, I don't trust what's happening in that market. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I want to be over here. You're 100% correct, Sean, when you talk about these markets. I want to be in the antique side of the equation for the long term. I don't want to be invested in comic books, Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering, video games, and the like, because I see what's happening in those markets. I mean, even CGC. CGC did an excellent job handling the comic side of their business. The problem that I have is now that they got in the trading cards, there's no population reports for the trading cards that they grade. That's an issue to me. If they start grading video games, I expect to see population reports. If they can't present that, I'm sorry. Your grading service is of no use to me. It's completely worthless because you're not giving the core information that I would need to make a decision as an intelligent investor. And that's what the Kimmies, the Timmies, and the Poindexters are missing when they analyze these markets. And it's amazing to me because they'll come in the comment section, they'll cut me up, but dare they ever go after WATA Games or some of these other grading companies or some of the auction companies that are manipulating these markets a little bit and priming the pump. That's sacrilege. They'll back up the multi-billion-dollar company at the expense of the little guy. Then, when you try to talk to them about financial investing, they'll come back around and they'll say, the whole stock market is rigged for billionaires. What the hell do you think is happening in the collectibles trade right now, guys? You honestly think these companies care about you? You honestly think WATA Games is lying in bed at night going, we really got to do a better job for the Timmies, Kimmies, and Poindexters out there. Maybe we should release population reports just to make sure that we're ethical and honest. No, they would have done it already. So yeah, are they talking about doing it? Great. In my opinion, too late. You should have done it when you started. That's when you release population reports, not X number of years in, come back around after all these allegations are circling and go, we want to make amends to the community. We're going to release population reports now. It's great. It's too little, too late. You had your chance. We already seen how you run a business. You manipulate the secondary market to your own gain, and then when you get called out on it, we're going to do better. Are you really? You don't care. As long as the next video game sells for more than the previous one in that same grade, that's all you care about. Let's be realistic. And to be fair, all grading companies are like that. All auction companies are like that, guys. That is the nature of the business. I'm here to tell you, it is extremely high risk. It is extremely scummy at times. You just got to learn to understand capitalism is down and dirty. And when you're looking at these markets, that's what it is. It's down and dirty capitalism. And I'm sorry I have to say that. It's the truth. Don't get me wrong. There's companies I love. For instance, I love Heritage Auctions. I do a lot of business with them. In any of my videos, you can probably see advertising from them in the background of my videos. But at the same token, I do have to sometimes take a step back and go, wow, they are really doing something that I don't agree with here. I'm not going to make a video on it every time they do that, but I am sometimes taken aback to the point where I go, whoa, look at this. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're putting out. This is very bad information. This is information that could potentially damage somebody who doesn't know how to interpret it, who comes into these markets with a credit card. Now he's in debt, $10,000, $20,000 because he listened to propaganda rather than facts. And again, that's nothing against Heritage. That's nothing against WATA. You could say that about any auction company. You could say that about almost any grading company. There's a fine line between market manipulation and hype, and you got to understand that. And when you've been doing this for as long as I have, when you had the mentors that I had, you can kind of see through it. But overall, I really think in 2021, as we head into 2022, there's just too much market manipulation. I'm just going to say it. In all these markets, even rare coins, you're not safe even investing in them. You have to really pull yourself back and look at the market as it actually is, not the way you want it to be. Next question, before I go off on an even longer rant with that. Okay. Sean, do you have any advice for someone looking to enliven and or create a collecting trade without affecting the market? Okay, I know the person that asked this is somebody who does comment on my videos a lot. You're going to have to clarify this question because, again, in most cases, the antiques and collectibles trade is pretty much 100% pure capitalism. Now, there is some regulation when we talk about collecting antique guns. If you're going to get involved in dealing or collecting in ivory, even antique ivory, you're going to run into regulation. Certain antiquities, artwork, some of those markets are regulated. But by and large, the overall antiques and collectibles trade is pretty much a true free market system. So the way that I'm reading your question is, do you have any advice for someone looking to enliven, create a collecting trade without affecting the market? There could be no such thing. Any action that you take is going to have an action on the market if it is on a large enough scale. And in some cases, even if it's on a small scale, it can still affect the market. That is what capitalism is by and large. So you're going to really have to expand on this question if you want me to answer it in depth. It is a good question, but I'm not understanding where it's going as a result. So let me leave it at that. We're going to do one more quick question, then I'm going to end this particular segment. I'm trying to keep this segment under at least 25 minutes just to make sure that everybody gets to see it. When I upload it, if I upload a video that's an hour long, I have people reaching out to me, Sean, why did you upload a video that's an hour long? I don't have time to listen to all that. And I tell them, we'll break it up. And they go, hey, isn't that your job? You're the YouTube content creator. So I kind of started taking that advice. I don't try to put out videos that are longer than 30 minutes unless I absolutely have to. So this question is very good, and I do want to at least answer it. Sean, I have a question as a collector, not as an investor. My retirement is still many years away. I am looking to sell off collections because I don't want to leave my wife a mess to deal with. That's very thoughtful. I have no mortgage or loans to worry about, so it's more about simplifying the estate. In essence, this would be a downsize. So would you recommend I keep the cash that these collectibles bring for mutual funds, or do you think I should consolidate a few of my collectibles into a few choice items? That's worded a little bit wrong. I think I may have read it wrong. I apologize. So I want to answer this in full. What he's basically asking is he doesn't want to leave his wife a mess when he dies. So he wants to sell off these collections and he wants to know what's best course of action for the money. If you are still a collector, I would always encourage you to trade up, meaning if you have a collection of 100 items, and it doesn't matter what we're talking about here, it could be widgets, could be Beanie Babies, could be rare coins, could be comic books, could be Pokemon cards, could be Lionel trains, whatever it is, you are probably better off, if you still want to be a collector, selling off the lower value pieces and going after pieces that are in the next price level up. Now, it depends on the market. Obviously, you don't want to invest in a dying collecting category or a market that is pretty much already hitting its saturation point or its peak. So if I was you, like if you're investing in, I'm just going to use this as an example, if you have a massive collection of vintage baseball cards, if you want to get to the point where you can buy some key vintage cards like a Honus Wagner or a card like that, or a Mickey Mantle rookie card, if you have a lot of cards that add up to several thousands of dollars in value, I would tell you to sell those cards off and go after one of the grails, like a Mickey Mantle rookie card, or even if you can afford it, an Honus Wagner. Now, it also depends on your age, my friend. If you are in your 60s, if you're in your 70s, and you really want to use the money in another way, meaning you want to invest this money, you brought up mutual funds, that would, in my opinion, if you are in the 60s, 70s, 80s category, that would probably be a better use of that money than tying it back up in the collectibles. Because one thing, if you drop over dead, and I'm sorry to state this, but no one watching this is immortal. It's going to happen to all of us at some point. If you drop over dead, if your wife doesn't know how to assess the value of those collectibles and doesn't know what auction house to go through, she could potentially still be taken advantage of. That's why I have a video coming up where I'm going to be talking more about negotiating with auction companies and how if you have a very valuable collection and you are in your 60s, you are in your 70s, you can actually contact certain auction companies. I've already named some of them in this video. Again, You guys accuse me of being biased. I'm here to tell you, you can contact almost a lot of your high-profile auction companies that have a presence in the antiques and collectibles trade, and some of those companies will allow you to negotiate a contract for those collectibles to be sold upon your death. They will allow you to do that. Now, there is one caveat with that. Obviously, you're going to have to then keep the collectible either until you die, or you're going to have to be sure that your next of kin or your heirs know that you have that contract set up. So upon your death, they can pretty much transfer that merchandise to the auction house so it can be sold. But there is a way you can negotiate that. I do have a high-profile collector who collects art, and he actually has an agreement set up like that with a very well-known, I'm not going to name the auction company who did agree to take that collection for a certain percentage when he dies. Now, the caveat is, again, that collection has to pass through to that auction company upon his death. So he can't sell it prior. If he does, he has to break that agreement. So that is one caveat to know about that. But I am going to talk about that more in an upcoming video. I hope you got something out of this particular Q&A series. Thanks for watching. I look forward to your comments and feedback.